Today, I'd like to take a look at the concept of anger and how it can affect us in terms of our spiritual life, and look at it from the perspective of both a Christian perspective and a Buddhist perspective. Uh, the path of joy that we have been discussing, that path of joy is really what we call a path of connection. When we are experiencing joy, we are connecting to other people. We are connecting to other experiences. We're coming out of ourselves. So there is a connection with joy. The path of sorrow is a path of separation, where we get upset and we have to withdraw from other people. And the sadness overwhelms us, and we can't feel one with other people. We feel more isolated. We feel alone. We can't make that connection that's so important with joy. Uh, when you think about it from the Buddhist perspective, the overall perspective, a Buddhist would say, well, what do you have to worry about when there are 7 billion other people in the world who are with you? It's really a great perspective, right? I mean, what is the worry? You're not alone in this world. There are many, many, many other people. So this idea of feeling separated and sad and by ourselves, when you look at it from the Buddhist perspective, well, it doesn't make any sense because there are so many others in the world to connect to, so many opportunities. I mean, the odds are pretty good when there are 7 billion people in the world, right? I mean, it's a whole different perspective in terms of looking at the world instead of this isolated world we can sometimes dwell in too much, where we live in a certain country, a certain town, a certain part of the town, very limited. Whereas really the perspective is there are billions of other people in the world. And so many people to enrich our lives, to get to know their cultures, their customs, to get to experience them. Certainly, those who have traveled to other countries have had that experience. Becoming aware of other cultures and how people act, it's very fascinating. And so it really changes our perspective, it alters our perspective. Certainly, when we look at it from the Buddhist perspective here of the 7 billion others, it really is a whole different way of coming out of ourselves and connecting with other people. Uh, in terms of getting angry, the neuropsychiatrist Daniel Siegel, who has studied this, has an interesting perspective to share with us as well. He says when we get angry, we can flip our lid and lose the benefit of our critical thinking cortex. So what happens is that part of our brain that is really more critical, that looks at things and tries to evaluate things, we kind of lose that part of our brain when we get angry. It goes away. We abandon it, and we give in to that anger. As a result, the part of our brain that is the prefrontal cortex, which is important for emotional regulation, it's important for moral judgment, it loses its ability to control our emotional limbic system. So where our emotions would normally be controlled out of the prefrontal cortex, uh, we lose it at that point when we get angry. We even have that expression in simple speech, don't we? Well, I lost it. Well, what did you lose? well, you lost your prefrontal cortex, the ability to regulate, control your emotions. So that is gone. And when that happens, naturally, you're going to engage in behavior, which when you reflect back on it later, you say, oh, why did I do that? That was dumb. That was stupid. Uh, I should have taken a pause. I should have taken some time to reflect. Oftentimes, the best advice we get is when we are starting to lose it, you get that control, take a pause. Go off by yourself, reflect, calm down, become peaceful before you speak. Because then when you speak and you utter those words and you're like, oh my goodness, why did I say that? that was stupid of me. That was dumb of me. I never should have said that. Better that I didn't say anything because I said that and it got me in deep trouble. Not a good thing. So that prefrontal cortex wasn't working that day too well, and I lost it. And difficulty there is taking those words back. Once those words are out, people remember those words. Uh, Days later, weeks later, months later, even years later, decades later. Remember what you said 30 years ago? Well, I don't remember, but I do. I remember, and not good, not good. So, as Siegel points out, we can lose control of that and engage in anger. Uh, One way out of anger is to reflect and say, well, what is the hurt that has caused my anger? Usually when we get angry, there is something that we are upset about. So from the Christian perspective, and this is consistent also with the Buddhist perspective, these really join together. Through meditation, through prayer, taking time to get in touch with that feeling of hurt. Maybe that's something that happened to us as a child. Maybe something that happened to us in a failed relationship. Maybe something that happened to us in our work. Caused a pain, a hurt. And sometimes we're even unaware of it. We have to reflect and unpack that. And along with that hurt, well, what is the fear that I have? We notice with the hurt goes a fear. I'm afraid of trying new things because I tried something and I flopped. It didn't work out well for me. And I was hurt by that experience. So I'm reluctant. I'm afraid to try new things in that thing. So when we look at it from this perspective and we take time to pray and reflect and get in touch with that hurt, get in touch with that fear through our prayer, through our meditation, through our reflection, it can be very helpful in terms of dealing with that anger, reduce that anger that we feel, and help us to channel our emotions in a much more positive, joyful way.